I think it. Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Well, my friends, the time has come. The Mandalorian Grogu premiere was last night in Los Angeles, and various outlets and fans have been reacting to it. And we're not just talking about the first 30 minutes like I did in my last video on the subject, we're talking about the full freaking movie from start to finish. What was The Mandalorian Grogu like? Well, all in all, as Variety.com puts it, The Mandalorian Grogu gets divided first reactions, from a thrilling adventure to one of the weakest Star Wars movies, and one outlet described it as a snooze fest. So there's a lot to break down, and hopefully we get a good sense of what fans might be saying a week from today, when it drops for the general audience. Just as a disclaimer in case you don't know this, I've not seen the movie, I have no idea what's after the 30-minute mark, and so, just like you guys, I'm going in blind. With that said, let's take a look at some of these quote-unquote divisive first impressions. So there's no order or rhyme or reason to how I'm gonna do these reviews, but I have chosen reactions from across the spectrum, from those who loved it to those who really didn't see any kind of appeal to it. So let's start with this one. The Mandalorian is a ton of fun, a perfect summer movie action-packed with a lot of humor and heart, not episodic. A full cinematic journey where Grogu steals the show. See it on the biggest screen as possible. So you might start to notice certain patterns with these reviews. A recurring compliment you're going to see time and again is that it looks good in IMAX. Go see it on the biggest screen possible is something I've read like 5 times today. But our next review comes from Peter of /Film, and he says this: The Mandalorian Grogu. The marketing had me worried, but this movie is actually a lot of fun. It does feel like a supersized high-budget few episodes of the TV show, more of an adventure of the week than a huge galactic event story. If you like the show, you'll love this. If you didn't, you probably won't. And the Anzellans, the little Babu Fricks, steal the show. It is worth pointing out something else I've read a handful of times today, that the movie is extremely low stake. The movie is exactly what we expected, just a handful of fun episodic adventures. And just to build on this, another interesting criticism that I've seen floating around today is that because the movie feels like TV show episodes stitched together, if you pay attention you can actually pinpoint the exact moment the would-be TV show episodes would start and end. So in this regard, Lucasfilm is really not beating the allegations that the movie is just a bridge between Season 3 and Season 4, if that is ever made. Then we come on to reviews which are a bit more centrist, I would say, somewhere between positive and negative. This is from Griffin Schuyler, who says, The Mandalorian Grogu is fine. An inoffensive, technically impressive spectacle that's kind of a snooze fest. Very much structured like an abridged season of the TV show, which unfortunately plays like watching the cutscenes of a Star Wars video game, instead of playing one. The expansion of the canvas unfortunately exposes the weaknesses in the writing, and lack of emotional connection I felt for much of the series. Favreau has the touch, if only someone else wrote the script. That being said, they say, it's a nice return to the pulpiness and simplicity of the first 2 seasons. That sentence alone, I think, is a pretty good sign, my friends. And they finish by saying Ludwig is working overtime to deliver the goods. If you love the show, I'm sure you'll have fun. And to be honest, I don't know how I'm going to feel about the film, but if I had to guess, it might be along these lines, where it's a fun movie, a lot of fun elements of classic Star Wars. You know, the creature design is very impressive on this one. They're bringing back classic aliens. ILM, I'm sure, did a fantastic job. But overall, is it going to move the Star Wars needle? I doubt it. And for this reason, I think it's going to be a perfect family flick. Apparently those who brought their kids say that they loved it. And you know, that's kind of what George Lucas wanted. But based on so many of these reviews, if you were hoping for something more than what's been hinted at, you're going to be very disappointed. So I think it's safe to say there are no big cameo surprises. I don't think they would have said this if Luke were in it. So my expectations are very much in check. When I go next Friday, I'm not expecting anything but a fun, surface-level, low-stake thrill ride. Do I think it's going to break my top 5 Star Wars movies? Almost certainly not, but I guess that's not the purpose of this kind of film. The Mandalorian Grogu is exactly what it's been marketed to be. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It's everything you expect after seeing the trailers. I suppose the question then becomes, should this have just been another season of the show? Did it warrant the big screen experience? And to this end, was this the best idea for the first Star Wars movie in years? There are so many reasons the answer is no, but at the same time you could say that playing it safe was the best bet. Make fans fall in love with the fun aspects of the Star Wars universe again. So then we have Russ Milheim from The Direct who says, The Mandalorian and Grogu is a resounding fine. It's literally just episodes of the show stitched together, for better or worse. It's a standalone adventure that ultimately feels unimportant to any grander plans. Enjoyed Rot of the Hutt more than I thought I would, and Zeb, that's Zeb Orrelios, was wonderful. So once again we have someone saying that this film has no relevance to the wider Mandoverse. And this is where I predict when the general audience sees the film there's going to be an even greater divide. There are going to be those who say, these are just what we call filler episodes but for the big screen. And then you have those who say, that's actually part of the charm of it. But I guess what worries me is they're not leaving any room for speculation or deeper lore connections. Is Grogu really just going to be a MacGuffin? Because so far it seems like the only reason Grogu is so appealing in this film is because, oh look, he's so cute. And I am still hoping they do something with the Yoda connection, but it frustrates me that Lucasfilm stopped treating Grogu like an actual character. But rewind back to the days of the first 2 seasons and even in the build up to the Book of Boba Fett, and yes, fans loved Grogu because he was so cute, but there was also so much substance and mystery to him. Jonathan Sims says that The Mandalorian Grogu is one of the weakest Star Wars movies. An emotionless, predictable experience that doesn't push Din Djarin anywhere interesting. Dull, unexciting fight scenes, just CGI monsters and action figures mashed together. A long, colourless, made-for-TV movie. This is certainly one of the more negative reviews, and it seems like those who really didn't like it all have the same opinion, that the movie dragged for way too long. And something a couple of others mentioned is that near the end the movie loses steam. Then there are some reviewers which deviate from the common narrative, and one of those is Perry Nemiroff from Collider.com. She seems to have loved all the cutesy stuff, but not the Hutts. She says Rot of the Hutt, not as much. Live action Hutts are a challenge to pull off. A gladiator Hutt, even more so. And it didn't help that Rotter's dialogue was often too on the nose. Jon Favreau did mention that in this movie Rotter talks about his dad a lot. Jabba. So does the movie suffer from a big criticism I've had for many Star Wars projects, that it's too self-referential? Jermaine Lucia says, The Mandalorian is, as expected, a longer, bigger episode of the show. It has 1 or 2 standout scenes, but it feels more interested in developing the story to new locations, with new creatures, than the characters. Enjoyed some of it, left frustrated with the rest. And this is someone who's usually very positive, especially with new Disney Star Wars projects. So like I said, instead of going for depth, they were more interested in the aesthetics, new creatures, and new locations. And then we have someone who actually liked Rotter. This is Joseph from that hashtag show, and he says, I liked The Mandalorian and Grogu way more than I expected. The first half felt like what I thought it'd be, but I did not expect to love Rot of the Hutt as much as I did. And seeing Grogu be the hero was great. Star Wars on the big screen just feels right. So look, I'm excited. I'm going in with my expectations very much in check, and next week, you're going to be hearing what I think. But how do you guys feel about these early reviews? Let me know in the comments down below. Subscribe if you're new, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you, always.